4-3. Therefore, the application was denied without prejudice, okay? However, though, so tonight we have a brand new submittal, and this is for single-family patio homes, okay? Not townhomes. Patio homes shall follow the requirements as set forth in section 28 of our zoning ordinance. I did supply you with a copy of that in your packets, okay? So this development, it will be called Magnolia Village. It will consist of 25 individual lots. Each dwelling will have the required 2 enclosed parking spaces along with the driveway. There is a proposed masonry wall to be built along Barnett Boulevard. They are proposing also a 5-foot sidewalk along Barnett Boulevard. They're proposing to abandon the 20-foot utility easement on the western property line, and they will relocate it sufficiently within the development and it'll also be in a new easement to serve water to the site and utilities. So the developer stated he was going to preserve as many trees as he could on the western property line. Now, per our subdivision ordinance, the right-of-way for residential streets shall be 50 foot, but no less than 30 foot. So tonight, the applicant is asking for an exception to the right-of-way so that he may develop this site in order to maintain the development requirements for patio homes as stated within 4 PD requirements within that section 28. That exception request is written into the draft ordinance that you will be considering tonight, that exception to the 30-foot right-of-way. So in your packets, you also received additional exhibits that were for reference only, okay? Public hearings are required for zoning change. I did send out notices to everybody within 200 foot. From those notices, I received 2 emails and 3 speaker request forms. All were opposed. Also today, I did receive an additional 16 letters that were in favor of the request. I placed copies on the dais for each one of you. So tonight you will be considering the draft ordinance that was in your packet that was generated by our city attorney. This will regulate the development along with the request for the 30-foot right-of-way. Okay, so tonight we need to make sure we hold our public hearing, open and close it. And then the commission, you need to make a determination on whether to recommend to city council the application be approved as submitted, approved with modifications, deny the request, or you may also postpone any action in order to receive additional information. So with that being said, that is the end of my briefing. And if it's fine with the chairman and the commission, I'd like to hand it over to the applicant.
Yeah.
Good?
Thank you, Autumn. Okay, all right. So my name is Nikki Moore, and I'm an independent entitlement consultant. I was hired by Mr. Broadway here to kind of facilitate this zoning change for 102 Barnett Boulevard. I'm gonna, oh, great. Okay, so once again, a lot of y'all, some of you are new faces to this panel, but others have seen this project come through before. The site is still in the same exact location. And so when all this was initially annexed into the city of Highland Village, it all came in as SF40. And then as development has happened in Highland Village, all of these other communities that surround our property and even along 407 have been developed and had an opportunity to go through different zoning change. This particular parcel has just been under the ownership of one individual single family home. It is a 4-acre site. And so when I kind of look around this and I see, you know, the SF 8,000 square foot lots kind of surrounding the school in the area. You have your planned development, commercial, and other retail along Justin Road or Farmers Market 407. That all feels really, really appropriate. The problem with this site being kind of so far deep and off of 407 is it really lacks the visibility to be more of a commercial or a retail type of site. It really, really screams, I want to be residential. But you have this, it's 4 acres, it's a 4-acre box. So what can we do in that 4 acres that provides value to current, future residents of Highland Village, but also providing just value to the city as a whole? And so when you think about a community for a lifetime, it's healthy to offer a diverse range of housing options for different life stages for those that are in your community. And so I think that patio homes are a great option to kind of fulfill this need. And kind of fit in with the surrounding uses in terms of the fact that there is a school next door. You do have single-family neighborhoods that are already established. And so Mr. Broadway is proposing Magnolia Village. It's going to be a beautiful community with 25 luxury patio homes. Each home offers front entry garages that really optimize private backyard space for each of the residents to enjoy. All of the homes are, at a minimum 3 bedrooms. The floor plans have been really thoughtfully designed. They have different flex spaces, studies, open concept living. And so really, and also too, when I look at the site plan, we, obviously this site plan has gone through a couple of renditions as staff has kind of gone over. It started with 60 townhomes and then 39 and then now 25 patio homes. So with the patio homes, we were able to thoughtfully distribute the 1-story homes, so the purple and the green, over there along that western property line. So you have the 20-foot backyard and then you only have 1 story. So it's really to preserve the privacy of those existing neighbors along that stretch. Along the front of Barnett Boulevard, there is a masonry screen wall planned. That first slide that was up there as a placeholder is more of the monumentation that will also be there, kind of announcing a sense of place into the community. The rest of the fencing will be your traditional 6-foot board-on-board kind of cedar-capped fence that you would traditionally find in a neighborhood. And as staff kind of said, Mr. Broadway's gone through and done a tree survey, and so the intent is to, by offering patio homes, keeping a lot of those trees along the perimeter, just as existing screening and whatnot, but also just for the benefit of the new residents, right? Because you can't replace mature landscaping as well. Okay, so this kind of outlines the different transitions that the site plan has gone over. So currently with these 25 patio homes, we're running about 6.25 dwelling units per acre. I think it's important to point out that the SF 8 neighborhood around us is about 5.45 dwelling units per acre. So we're really talking about, in terms of compatibility with our surrounding neighborhood, a 2 to 3 home kind of difference. You're not going to necessarily feel that on a certain level. As Autumn was explaining, all of our home sizes meet and exceed the requirements for patio homes. The requirement's 1,200 square foot. Our minimum of 1 story is 1,650, and they go all the way up to 3,200 square feet. We are offering the 2 enclosed garage off-street parking in addition to your standard driveway width as well, 25-foot driveway in the setback. And so that just really provides at least 4 off-street parking spaces as well for all of these homes. As we mentioned earlier, having these front entry homes really allows us to provide usable backyard spaces and side yard spaces. I would say these backyards are probably a little bit bigger than your typical patio home you would find in a garden home. And so we're kind of excited that we're able to meet and exceed all of those patio home requirements. So one of the really great things that I love working with Dusty Broadway on is he has a great attention to detail and architecture. So the townhomes he had originally presented were stunning, but these are no less. I really want to point out the various roof lines. They kind of exceed those residential design requirements of a 612 roof pitch. Got 10-foot ceiling plate heights. I want you to notice the brick and the stone around all of the windows and garages and doors. That is a very elevated style note. The painted carriage style front door or garage doors add to that front architecture detailing. These are beautiful and they will age well. I also think it's important to point out that this is only, there's 25 homes, 4 different floor plans, and those floor plans is really what drive, your window placement and whatnot. And so out of those 25 homes, you still also have 4 color schemes, 3 of which have 2 different colored bricks on the homes, and the 4th scheme is painted white. And so the idea behind that is that you're going to get a really diverse community in terms of like style and look, so that you're not walking around this like monotonous little neighborhood. This is one of the 1-story elevations. 9 of these would be positioned over there on the western portion of the site plan. Once again, just offering a variety of windows and architectural features such as those shed roofs, the dormers, the vented louvers, really create that dynamic neighborhood movement. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the floor plans, but I do want to hit a few highlights in them. So this is the smallest 1-story home at 1,600 square feet, but you have 3 beds, 2.5 baths. What I also really love about this plan, and this is just coming from someone who has lots of kids, but double vanities even in the secondary bathroom. That's a really, really thoughtful design. And then on this one, it's a little bit bigger at 1,800 square feet, but once again, the double vanities, really great open concept, 8-person table. This is kind of where you might be looking to downsizing, but you don't want to give up your entertainment space, right? Okay, on the 2-story plans, I really, really love this one. It's 3 bedrooms plus a study, but if you'll notice, that study on the 2nd floor also has a closet and windows, and so it could be a 4th bedroom if needed, maybe a smaller 4th bedroom. It also still has, just a flex space, another den, another TV area, a game room for the kids, whatnot. So really just thoughtful floor plans. This is the largest of them all at 3,200 square feet. This is kind of that entertainer's dream. You've got more of a formal, larger dining space plus a breakfast nook. I love this one because it has the more wraparound patio, making use of both the backyard and the side yard options. This also has the studies down and then the masters up, but you also have the utility programmed up as well for that convenience of that homeowner. Okay, so with any development, what do you hear the most? Traffic, drainage, yeah. So back in 2022, when the 60 townhomes were proposed, the city did perform a traffic study. The recommendations really came out the fact that 407 can accommodate up to 10,000 more cars, and it did not warrant a light at the intersection of Barnett and 407. And so, but even then, we kind of want to assuage. It is next to a school, so let's just kind of appease the neighborhood. So using the ITE trip generation manual, 25 homes during that early AM peak hour when you're dropping off kids at school, you roughly can produce, 25 homes will produce half a car for the whole entire development, right? So you have 12.5 cars. If you spread that over an hour of dropout time, that's really having one additional trip every 5 minutes during that drop-off hour. And I want to kind of say this, but when you add traffic, you slow traffic down. Slow traffic down makes it for safer communities. It makes it safer for pedestrians. And so I think that 25 homes producing, most likely, even if they have kids in the school, they're going to be walking their kids to school. They're not going to be adding to the traffic at that point in time. So I think it's just really important to kind of throw that out there and talk about that up front. Okay, so as Autumn mentioned, to the design manual in terms of like engineering spec, for public roads in the city of Highland Village, this would ask for a 50-foot right-of-way. So in that 50-foot right-of-way, I think it's important to recognize that there's between 28 and 30 feet of just concrete pavement for the drive aisle. And then the rest of it comes from the 10 feet outside of the pavement for the sidewalk and the parkway. And so what we're able to kind of offer and the way the site plan kind of shook out, and we were going to make these private streets, but after talking with staff and thinking about, okay, well, in 50 years when these roads need maintenance, you don't want to ask 25 homeowners to have to pay for that maintenance, right? They're going to be calling their city first. And the city has that scale of economies, right? So they can easily do this and repair a road faster, easier, more cost effective than a small little HOA. And so he was like, please, let's make these public roads. Let's ask for a deviation in terms of the right of way. So in a 30-foot right of way, we were still able to provide all of the typical components. It's just platted a little differently. So our 30-foot right-of-way, it just includes the pavement that you would typically have in your typical pavement section, so the 30 feet. And then the 10 feet of the parkway and the sidewalk, and then the 5-foot utility easement is all encapitalized in a pedestrian, landscape, utility, and drainage easement. So the property line goes all the way to the curb. And so visually, you have all the components there. No one would know the difference. It's really just how the land is platted and dedicated. Now, as a homeowner, you're responsible for the yard maintenance all the way to the curb. You're not just gonna stop at the sidewalk and then wait for the city to come show up and like mow the parkway, right? No, you go ahead and mow it because it's in your front yard. And so it's really just kind of encapsulating that as part of the property of the homeowner and not dedicating that to the city, but you still have all the sidewalk, drainage, utility needs that you would have there. Okay, and lastly, we start talking about diversity in housing. And so we also wanted to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples. So we took new home builds, because this would be a new home build, from 2020 to up until recent, and what was sold in the past 12 months. So you can kind of see here broken down into the minimums, the maximums, the average, and the median. So at the bottom, the minimum sold price was about $600,000. And then those average and medians kind of shook out around that $770,000 to $820,000. And so it really is kind of showing you an opportunity that there's a need, a product differentiation that could really, really benefit future residents or current residents of Highland Village. I kind of see these as new homeowners, dual income, maybe no kids, looking to have kids, young kids, but they don't want to spend their weekends doing yard maintenance. So this kind of feels a little bit more manageable to them. It's also really close to an elementary school. I see that approach. I think this could be an empty nester looking to downsize, but they don't want to leave their community. They don't want to leave their church. They don't want to leave their bunco group. They want to be close to their grandkids. This is kind of a really, really great opportunity to offer a different housing product. So in addition to really just offering value to new residents, existing residents, there is still a great monetary value to the city of Highland Village. And so currently, this is the tax revenue. Highland Village collected about $6,000. If we are assuming an evaluation of each of these homes at about $550,000, that would generally bring in about $69,000 year over year in terms of tax revenue for Highland Village. And so this contributes to that general fund. It contributes to the comprehensive plan to build parks and trails, improve city infrastructure like roads, pay public safety personnel, so they don't transfer to other departments. You can keep your employees here. Another benefit really is just that this development is built, the infrastructure is put in with private dollars. So for example, there's no continuous sidewalk currently along Barnett. It stops. The development would pay for and put that into place, making it easier to walk and bike in school and really tie everyone involved. And so the site plan has gone through a lot of renditions. We feel like we have kind of listened to all of the concerns, really massaged the site plan down into something that I think could be palpable, still bringing value to the city of Highland Village and new residents. So thank you for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do I go back? Okay.
All right. Well, let's open this up for public comments. All right. Public comments opening at 7:35. All right, we will go first with the people that would like to speak. Shirley Hutton. Hello.
Hello.
You'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I think you've been up here before, haven't you?
Yep.
All right, please state your name, address, and
Sure.
have at it.
My name is Sherry Hutton. I live at 923 Heather Glen Court, so I back up. Actually, our
lot has the most length, so would be most impacted by the number of homes that are behind there. My main thing, yes, this is the third time we've been here. And yes, some things have changed, but some things have not. The first time that it came to planning and zoning, it was asked that a traffic study be done. A traffic study was never done. That was asked of the very first one. The second person that came and spoke for them, as this is the fourth, they just did it. They looked at other townhomes in, we don't know where, it didn't say. They just used an average of, okay, this is a complex of 60 townhomes. So a traffic study was never done. They talked about in the last one that we were here, how they talked to the homeowners. Nobody's ever come and talked to us to ask us what would help with us. I saw them the very first time several years ago when they came and were first thinking about it, and I just said I just didn't think it was an appropriate spot for what they wanted. Due to the traffic situation, it's horrid trying to pull out on 407. They will never be able to take a left-hand turn safely, plus with children there. But my whole deal is they've never followed through with anything. This is the third time. When asked the first time why, if he could build the 60 townhomes but follow all of Highland Village regulations, he said he publicly said here he couldn't do that and make any money. And so he said, so that came that, and then that plan was tabled and denied. And still, now we're on our third rendition, and he still can't follow what all the other builders in this area have been able to follow. He still needs changes. So that just makes me nervous on who's building. If this is the third rendition and we're down to 25 homes, and he still can't follow Highland Village regulations, how do I know that he's going to follow through with the things that he's said? The other thing is they wanted to connect. I need to know, because when they put in my fence, I'm an original homeowner, and they couldn't, I wanted trees in my yard, but because the fence lines wouldn't match up, they had to cut a hole to get one of the trees through. So technically that fence is within my yard, so we're not sure exactly which trees behind belong to us and which ones don't. And they've never bothered to do anything. They just talk about, oh, well, we'll cut down the trees or we won't cut down the trees. Well, you need to find out whether those trees are mine or not before you start thinking about cutting them down. But nobody's ever come talk to me. Nobody's ever done anything. I'm just, like I said, if all the other builders in Highland Village, any of the new developments that were just done, the one on Highland Village Road.
Sorry, time's up.
So that's it.
Thank you. All right. I'm sorry, I can't read the last name. First name's Elizabeth S.
Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi team, back again.
Yes, hello.
Elizabeth Stasny, 931 Inverness. We back up to the property. You might also know me as the tree lady. Always seem to talk about trees. Going to do it again. I actually see significant improvements in this plan from previous ones, and the thing that I appreciate the most is the single-story houses across our back fence line. I think that was actually really nice of the developer, and acknowledged that in order to pass this, he's going to have to get approval from the neighbours, because otherwise we'll keep doing 20% in order to force a supermajority on the City Council. I think the devil's in the details, and while I think this is a really great plan. What she didn't mention was, at least in the paperwork, it indicates wanting to move the 20-foot water easement that runs behind our fence line and trim that down from 20 feet to 12 feet. So if you think about 25-foot trees and my fence, and then another fence, because there's trees in the middle there. So there's my fence, there's my trees, and then there's his fence, because our property line's actually on the other side of our trees. Then you've got not much land between you and the house that's now single story right underneath 25-foot tree. So I'm a little concerned about that. They did say that there was going to be a minimum of 20-foot setback. That's not true according to the plan they proposed. So I think we need some clarification there. I think we also need to acknowledge a couple of things. Those trees that are all over that property are habitat to protected species, screech owls and hawks, and they are protected. and we ought to look into the regulations that protect them. I believe it is not allowing for the trees to be demoed for the site, any of the trees, when it's nesting season. I also really appreciate that the developer is wanting or trying to help us protect those trees that are along our fence line, but they're actually not his trees, they're my trees, because when we went and did a survey, we found that our actual property line was on the other side of the trees. So I think we need some help from the council to figure out what to do with that tree line. I don't have all the answers. I don't think a fence line sandwiching trees with my fence, a tree, and another fence line is quite right. I think we can come up with a solution that is right, and I'd like to propose that you amend the proposal so that we get that 20-foot setback back. And thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, those are all the speakers we have. We have some others here that did not wish to speak. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 that are opposed. They will be entered into the public record. I'm sure you don't want to sit and listen to me talk about them all. We've also got 2 opposed emails, which will also be entered in the public record, and 16-4 that will be entered. I think we are done for the public hearing. We will close it at 7:36.
Mr. Chairman, I assume you're going to allow time for the applicant to respond to some of the comments and/or ask any, address any questions, or staff for that matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Typically,
I mean,
after the public hearing, that's
Okay.
usually the banter that goes back and forth amongst the commission, giving an opportunity to address questions and comments.
Again, usually we ask the questions up here and then they go, but if they want to
Go for it.
then do I need to open it back up?
No, you don't need to open a public hearing. This is just questions
Okay.
you can have, the commission can have
Yeah.
directly with the applicant.
Okay, so I do want to clarify the 20, so when we say we're abandoning the 20-foot water easement, there's not necessarily a water line in that now. It was like set aside to have water connect to that property. So when we say we're abandoning it and rerouting it on our property, but that doesn't change the backyard depth. We're abandoning the water easement so we can actually have 20-foot usable backyards for those residents. So those lots would be at a premium because they have a more depth in backyard. So when we say we're abandoning it, we're not reducing it to 12, it's staying 20 feet from the building line to the property line. Also, in terms of fencing, so the existing fencing right there will remain. There won't be additional fencing like added along there unless like a neighbor specifically requests it, or if a neighbor's like, hey, while you're here, I want you to redo my fence. I've got a few boards loose. Let me fix it. That would be completely up to them. But the thought process is a lot of those fences are brand new and they're really great shape. So to just leave them alone, so we don't disturb the trees, we don't disturb the owls and the hawks. And I want to make sure I'm covering all of that. The only other fencing that would be added would be like the in-between kind of type fencing in between the homes to designate property lines. So I just kind of wanted to be like clarifying all that that is written on there. The 12-foot is the minimum. That's the 12-foot depth on some of the other. I'm going to walk over here. These 12-foot have a rear setback here. These have a 20-foot setback. So just to be clarified, that is on the site plan and written in the ordinance. So, okay. Any other questions you have?
I'm
Possibly.
sure we're all going to have several.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Scott Kristen, Director of Public Works. I want to clarify just one thing that the applicant just stated. Along the western side of the property line, there is an existing 20-foot utility easement. It does house an active water line in it now. Their proposed concept plan, which is what this is proposing to keep that 20-foot utility easement. Once preliminary plat and final plat come through, it'll come through planning and zoning as well as council. The plan is to relocate that existing water line. However, you cannot abandon an easement until the new water line is in, and it will be placed inside a proposed easement along the adjacent to 30-foot right-of-way that's proposed. Also, once the preliminary plat and final plat come through, those lot lines will be staked and hardened up with rods to locate the permanent location.
Question. So if the idea is to vacate that 20-foot easement, so how does that work as far as the city rerouting it and us approving? I mean, does it?
You don't approve it.
You don't approve it? Okay.
Your body won't approve it, city council won't approve it. Abandoning an easement is done by separate instrument, and Public Works will work with the project engineer to design and reconstruct the water line.
And you guys have looked at what it would take to reroute that current?
We've done it many times.
Okay.
On this development, we don't have any civil construction plans yet, so no.
Okay.
But it's not a new procedure.
Okay.
What does that line supply?
That is a fire loop for the Briar Hill 3 subdivision, as well as the Rambling Oaks, Phase 1, Phase 2, the Animal Center, and the, it used to be the Tudor Time. It's a...
Heritage isn't on that supply?
It does go through Heritage to the McMurray Road and ties in there. There's also a fire loop around the LISD property that goes through the Bouillon church location that ties into Briar Hill too. So there's plenty of fire loop in the area.
Scott, on the 30-foot street, am I understanding that that's also exists other places, and the only real difference is the 5 feet versus 10 feet on either side? Am I understanding that correctly?
31 foot back to back, that's back side of the curb, face to face, 30 foot is our standard cross section.
Right.
We have 30-foot right-of-ways in the city. Currently, it's not in PDs, it's in standard zoning. There's not many. There's a few in the older section. Most of our plan developments, master plan communities, Highland Shores, the Castlewoods, most of those have 40-foot right-of-ways with 27-foot cross-section
I
streets
measured
in the
mine.
residential areas. The collector streets are wider.
I measured mine when I saw that on the paper. I actually got one of the contractors out and measured mine, and mine's actually 25 feet.
That too.
And we actually do have cars that do park. I mean, you're supposed to park, of course, on the curb partway, but
Question. There's 2 dead ends at each on this new plan. You know, with fire, a lot of these will have a circle cul-de-sac, so a fire truck could turn around. Is that going to be an issue for our fire department?
No, we talked about it with the fire department. Those are considered hammerhead turnarounds.
Okay.
So it's a 3-point turn. We have that as well in a newer subdivision, Chapel Springs, actually.
I was also noticing those dead ends don't really connect to anything. Are they planned to connect to the south so that you could come through, or is it just going to stop there?
They're not meant to connect to anything.
Okay.
You got a commercial development to the south and a school property to the north.
yeah, there's nothing for them to connect to, really. Yeah.
Not at this time.
I did have one question probably for you guys. Scott, sorry. Anybody else? questions for Scott yet.
No.
We'll think of something.
We'll come back to Scott, yeah.
On the elevations, and I think I looked at it correctly, but are there no windows on the back sides?
Yeah, there's windows on the back sides. So
Maybe the copies that I got just,
I'm going to go to the floor plans so you can actually see
Okay.
where there's
all right, yeah, so the living area.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so you have kind of like natural light kind of coming all the way through, connecting through the foyer, which is pretty typical of a front entry garage home, having that. But you got windows there, windows in your master bedroom down there, or primary, sorry, need to be politically correct. Yeah, windows all throughout, so plenty of natural light coming in. This has got a side patio and a rear patio, so you've got kind of different connectivity to your different side yards and backyards as well.
All right.
Anything else?
On lot 13, what is that offset to the LISD property?
Yeah, I'm gonna go over here.
I didn't see an office.
This is going to be for your 3-foot side, or your 1-foot side, or your 0 side in terms of patio homes. So you have your larger setback over here, your 9-foot setback over on the other side. So that's a 3-foot to the property line. But then on the school property, that's open field and playground.
I guess
The side of the house.
it's a side setback, so there's only 1 foot based on the change. And we're normally used to seeing 5 foot.
So in patio homes, you have in Autumn, you can kind of maybe help me out. You have like a small side, like a 1-foot side with a 3-foot maintenance area. So you can access and kind of paint the home. And on your other side, you have a 9-foot. And so that gives you depth on one side, width on one side, and a 0 side on the other. Does that make sense? So they're all like 10 foot apart, building to building.
Right, but since it's another person's property, you're having to go on someone else's property to access on that side of lot 13.
You would not have to go on their property. They have enough width there on the property line where you wouldn't have to go on the other person's property to access your home. But on that side, you wouldn't have backyard access. You would put your backyard access on your 9-foot side, setback side.
It looks like there's about 1 foot to the fence from the house there. To the fence and the house, to the other person's property.
I mean, that's still meeting patio home standards in terms of like property line and setback and whatnot. If there was another building on that side, that building would still have to be 10 feet away for fire code and other things like that. But there's not a building on the other side. It's open land.
But it's made it where they can't build 10 feet. Well, I guess they would have to build 10 feet from you or not their property.
So, yes, but they would have to do that anyways, depending on what they're building, if it wasn't a school. Does that make sense? We don't know what that
It's
could
kinda-
possibly be.
You're not having to do it, so it's just strange that they would have to do it if you're not building 10 feet from the property.
I mean, it's already established as a school, so I mean, I guess if it changed hands, then yes, that would come up, just as this particular property used to be SF40, and we're having to navigate different setbacks to meet different zoning criteria, and so I guess whatever they would be zoning would be applicable, so yes.
Okay.
What is the expected price point? And I know you got a variety of floor plans, from 1650 to 32 something.
Anywhere between about 550, about 650, or some of the larger ones. Maybe you go to the starting point, it's about 550. We'll go up to about 650, maybe push 700 on the bigger lots and stuff like that. That's where the price point is currently.
All right.
And I might be able to clarify a little bit on the little fence. So where you walk through there to maintain your house, there's nothing on that side, so there's just a fence there, so you don't actually back to anything or your side to anything right there. So you have your way of actually getting your right-of-way to your own property. there's just nothing on the other side. So there's going to be a fence right there. And so that's where you actually walk just to maintain. So there's not going to be anything over there. And then if anybody ever did acquire the land from the ISD, which they have sold some, but it's all vacant land, not existing buildings, that portion of it, they'd also have another setback that they'd have to come to. So you don't actually enter anybody's property. That's your own property line right there that you have.
I just noticed everywhere else you have either 12 or 20 feet, and that's just the one place on the whole site plan that's 1 foot from someone else's
Because mainly where it
property.
actually come in, it'll be the same way on the other side down here, where that actually comes in, there's a little bit more of a gap, but how these actually had to line up, where that actually lines up in the fence line that's already existing there, we just had to balance it out. And again, this plan could actually change, and it could actually shift a little bit there on that, but that's how it actually just shaped up when we were trying to do it.
Have you built any of these homes, like similar homes in other locations?
Me personally, no, that'd be Dusty has.
No, sir, I have not built any of these particular type homes. I've got 30 years experience in construction, and I've had a lot of building under my belt, but not that particular type of home.
Do you anticipate any problem with labor, finding sufficient labor?
I don't think so. Right now, there's not an issue with labor. No, I do not.
Okay.
There's plenty of people, actually.
What class shingles are you going to put on the homes?
There'll be at least a 30-year, probably a 40-year shingle. We're considering, we haven't got that deep, but possibly an architect shingle. We're looking at like name brands like Tamco and stuff like that.
They're going to be impact resistant?
Yeah, they
Class
can be.
4?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We could do, if that's what you're wanting, that's what we'll do.
We get hail here occasionally.
Right, quite often, that's for sure. But yes, we're going to put the most top quality products in this project. I can assure you.
Are you going to do any customization on these floor plans? Someone comes in and they're like, I don't like this or like that, or design center, are you just going to build and there it is?
It would be limited.
Okay.
As far as the custom part of it. I'm not going to say that I'm not, but sure, I would certainly entertain that thought. But each one, if somebody comes in, I want the kitchen redone, or I want these walls redone or something, that would be probably fairly difficult to do. But if a home buyer wants something that's not substantial, then I would certainly entertain that thought. You bet.
All right. Another question about the homes themselves. I got some others here, and I see he's writing a book over here. I know right now you've got it platted for specific floor plans for each lot. As you start building, you see more people want floor plan 1A than they want 1B. Are you going to be shuffling these around as demand requires for some of these properties? And
No.
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 Okay.
My thought pattern on that is there's 25 homes, and, I feel like that there would be sufficient buyers for those. For me to make an exception and try to change the plan, I would have to come back through the city. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot to do to change one home and put it on the other lot. So the answer to that would be no.
Oh, so it's pretty, once you go through all this, you're set on what home has to go in each lot?
Yeah,
Okay.
as for right now, yes. And I think it's a great plan, and it's been very, very thought through. But yes, the homes that we have on these lots, and honestly, I don't know that they would, if you switch one to the other, I don't know that it would honestly fit. It's a process that would have to go through if somebody said, I want this one over here.
Okay.
As far as elevations, like for your 1-stories, do you have multiple elevations that you're going to go through with those?
Yeah.
And will the buyers be able to choose that, or will it be set kind of as your plan?
It's going to be set, and we're going to do 4 elevations on each one. For example, at the very north end where the purple, it'll be the white, and it'll be the darker brick, and it'll be the other brick and the other brick. And I've tried to lay those out to where there's not one that's across the street from the other, if that makes sense. So if you have a white one that's over here, would there be a white one down below it? Yes, but it would maybe be down the way so that it wouldn't contrast with the other one.
Right.
So you're going to have a model home out there?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to have a model home out there?
I plan to do a model, yes.
You going to build any spec homes, or are they going to be all on demand?
They will be pretty much on demand. I think the lender was going to require that. He may let me do 2 or 3, specs, if you will, to get going. But I truly believe that the pre-sales would be strong, and then therefore it wouldn't be considered spec.
Okay.
Are you the current owner? Or?
I am.
So you bought it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As of when?
December 2022.
Okay. And just for clarification, right now there's planned for 9 single-story on that west side, and the rest are all 2-story.
That's correct.
Okay. So, I mean, it's just semantics, but a patio home is typically 1 story, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Just means it doesn't have a big yard.
It's just small yard?
Yeah.
Okay. And no patio?
Yeah, well, it's-
Patio.
patio home is kind of, the term patio home is kind of notional. It's a,
Okay.
the target demographic for this, though, are these empty nesters? Is this single families? I mean, 4 bedrooms seems kind of big for an empty nester, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, it runs the gamut, actually. Empty nesters, possibly the 1-story, the smaller ones. You have families that could be there on the larger ones that have kids in elementary school, which they would be able to walk next door. You may have, an assisted living facility to the south. If your family member or your spouse was there, possibly you would want to be there so you could, walk over every single day and visit. So the demographics vary. Young professionals, it's quite a few.
You've also got the memory center across from it.
Right, that's correct. It's a new memory center that's across the street.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was happy to be on the board and we approved that one, so.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, do you have your badge?
It was a nice setup. Thank you.
I was waiting for it to move downhill, and then, you know me, I've got mine all lined up.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Most of my concerns, I think that I already had written down the 30-foot street. I measured mine, 30 feet. I don't have guest parking, I am concerned just because of the high density, and we all know that as kids get older, you've got 3 and 4 cars parked outside your house. Not a lot of room out there to stack cars and guests. I know in the ordinance it states that I think it's for every 4 households there has to be 1 additional or something like that, or or a guest parking or something like that. But what's that?
It's a townhome requirement. That's not a standard for the patio homes.
This requirement is 2 enclosed parking spaces, and then also they'll have in the driveway.
Yeah, the 2 and 2 are fine. We know as we get older, our garages seem to be absorbed with stuff, we'll say. So, school access. You talked a little bit about the fence on either side on the north and south of the property. Is there going to be a gate there for the kids to go, or do they come all the way out to the street? Does that?
No, I'm not planning any gates there. They would have to come out the front and go around.
And then you mentioned the sidewalk, and although it's, the encouragement is who is maintaining the sidewalk? You talked about they would maintain the yard out beyond the sidewalk if it's in front of your house. But who maintains the sidewalk? Is that the HOA? Is that the city?
To my knowledge, it would be the homeowners association that would maintain that.
And then I had a question for I think it was you, the resident, that's actually abutted the back of the property.
Not you, Scott.
Yeah, no, 931, or no, sorry, not 931, which one? 923. So the fence, the concept calls for them to utilize your fence, not to put a new fence. They're going to be 2 fences? I thought she said that the fence would remain behind the property. They weren't going to put a new fence back there. Is that not what I heard?
Yes. Sure. Come on up.
Name and address, please.
My name is Dave Hutton. I'm also at 923 Heather Glen. Yeah, I've been listening to part of that thing and had more questions, so thank you for asking me up here. The fence right now is it's somewhere between 6 inches to a foot inside of our property line. And I know that was one of the things before that they had, and he said, oh, we'll just use the fence. Well, I'm like, it's my fence, and it's inside my line. So I don't think the intent for me or my wife or anybody back there would be that they'd be using my fence as part of their build.
Yeah, I think that's a common assumption because I know my property line actually extends 5 feet behind my fence. And I'm responsible to maintain that 5 feet, even though the HOA does it most of the time. But and those trees would be technically on your property. The concern was really around how the fence line was going to look in the end and who would be responsible to maintain that fence so that we didn't get into some down the road squabble between homeowners behind and homeowners in front about fence line in disrepair or something like that.
Yeah, I think one of the things we saw in one of the proposals was the 6-footer they were talking about, and I think the thinking was we still had ours, which I think is an 8, and they were going to put a 6-footer a little bit in closer, but now it sounds like they're planning on using our fence line with the trees back there. And I think one of the other concerns we had with the trees was they were talking about they were going to have an arborist come out and determine which trees could be pulled down and which trees weren't. And so the question I had with that was, okay, how do they determine which ones come down and which ones don't, especially if there's some of the ones that are on our property?
Well, I'll speak to that issue as a city attorney and also as a property lawyer. They're not going to be pulling down any trees that are on your property. Otherwise, they're running a civil liability with you. They're only going to take care of trees, and the only thing we're going to be regulating as far as their development will be the trees that are located on their property, not any that are on yours.
Thank you.
But that does bring up the question, though, if there's not a second fence, and 5 feet behind the primary fence that's there today is actually the homeowners that are already there today. I mean,
It's the homeowner, it's the person responsible for the maintenance is who owns the property.
But did somebody say it's 6 to 12 inches?
Yes.
Side of their property
Yeah, it's inside the pins.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we had the fence put in, I guess 10, 12 years ago, the one thing we asked them to do was put it inside.
Right.
So that was specifically done. And not because we knew this was coming, just because it made sense.
Let me say this. It is not uncommon, and it may have been misconstrued, and if it was, applicant can speak to this, but it's not uncommon that when there's a screening, when there would normally be a screening requirement of a fence or a wall or something where there's already an existing fence, that the city doesn't require many times a developer to put in that second, because you do have a situation now. So when you say we're using the other fence, I think, and again, correct if I'm wrong, we're using it in the sense that there's already an existing screen. We're not going to add another screening fence because there's always room there, but that does not entitle them to do anything in that fence. It also doesn't obligate them to repair that fence. In fact, it doesn't even allow them, again, to trespass across the property line to even touch that fence. So that's, and again, applicant's, planner might speak to that if I'm stating it kind of what she intended to say. But I think that's what we often understand is, as far as the using the fence, it's rather than creating a new screening fence, is that essentially is the screening fence is the one that the adjacent owners already own,
Yep.
but they're not using it in the sense that they're doing anything to it.
Totally get the redundancy of the fence. I wouldn't want that either. My concern is there's 5 to 6 feet behind that fence is still the primary residence property.
6 to 12 inches.
Just 6 to 12 inches?
Yeah.
Sorry. Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's not on mine.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the house 30 years, so you'd probably have to send somebody back and check the pins and see where the things are. But I know it is, our fence is definitely inside of where that is.
They did that to line, like their
Right,
tree
so that everybody's lined up.
before ours was finished. So there was a tree that was in that property that I wanted in my yard, but Centex wanted the fence lines to all run together. So they actually cut out the bottom of the fence so that tree could come through.
And then the tree got blown over 10 years later, so not an issue.
I know, because they specifically, I said, why isn't our fence back further? And they're like, because we wanted it.
Been in similar situations where they wanted the fences to line up despite what the property line was, so.
Yeah.
Right,
It's Centex. So, are we good?
That's,
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
The streets, making them from private streets to public streets, and the sidewalks, when the construction is doing that, who installs, pays for it, does all that?
It's developer installed and dedicated to city as an asset.
Okay, so they're hire the contractors, you guys have nothing to say about it, but then you maintain it?
Oh, we inspect it.
Okay.
We get plenty to say about it.
Built to city- they're
It will
built
be
to
built to city
standards.
spec.
Okay. Okay. And that's sidewalks and road in this case, because the sidewalks are inside the
All
easement.
infrastructure that'll be dedicated to the city will be designed by their engineer of choice, reviewed by city staff and consultants, constructed by their construction company that they hire, fund, and dedicated to the city, and our inspectors, city employee inspectors will inspect it. All infrastructure buried, surface, grading, everything before it is accepted. It'll be reviewed and accepted by the city.
And does that include drainage and, okay.
on the plus side, I assume rerouting, or I don't know what the term I want to use, but moving the easement and moving that water pipeline. We did have the one email where she complained that the water pressure is horrible in that area already.
35.
What's that?
It's a whopping 35.
Okay.
Of water pressure. That's the highest.
So I'm assuming that though when they redo that easement and move that line, it will improve the pressure.
No, it's not going to improve pressure.
It's not.
That is one of the highest locations in the city. We studied water pressures and flows in the city years ago and constructed a second elevated water storage tank in the Unity Park area. We had one going on this site as an option, and it got turned down in that study. So it ended up being on city-owned property over in Unity Park, and we get TCEQ mandated
So that
pressures
already kind of
that we
matches the
exceed.
average around the city though.
If I remember correctly, it's more for these guys over here, going back from the times before y'all have been up here, the backside actually sits lower than the neighbors behind, correct? And y'all were going to build a screen, so one of the concerns the last time was they're looking out their backyard at the back of houses, the two-story townhomes, so have y'all looked at the height? So if the single-story homes, which are a great idea because you are taking them into consideration, but are they looking over the top or are they looking at a roof?
There's not that significant of a drop.
There's not? Okay.
I mean, it would be
Like 3 or 4 feet kind of thing? Okay. Minimal. So it's, okay, so it's not, they're not even looking at the roof. They're looking, yeah, okay.
It's going to feel like
Okay.
Like every other neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I just want to know, because I remember the two-story was a big deal.
Two-story was a big deal.
Like a couple of feet of drop, and to park feet, it's not significant.
Okay. The HOA, I know y'all are going to have one, and parking was already brought up here, and I know there are some HOAs that will only allow a certain number of cars per residence, not visitors, but they'll be like, you can have 3 cars because it's 2-car garage with 2 parking spaces out front. Is there gonna be a limitation for cars per residence, so you aren't stacked up there on Barnett and somebody walking in because, like you said, as family grows, cars go with it.
Sure. So I've never, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I've never heard of like a single family homeowner being limited to how many cars that they can have. I know that there's HOA rules about what you can park in your driveway, like your boat has to be behind your fence line, et cetera, and stuff like that. But unless it's like a leased community that's run by a management company, I don't believe that as a homeowner who owns property, you can limit the amount of cars they can have. Now, part of this is you've offered 4 off-street parking spaces. It is a public roadway, and so wherever they're not able to block a driveway, you can park a car on a street if you had a visitor. Now, I know some HOAs can say that there's like, you can't have, I know City of Arlington does this too, where your car cannot be parked in the same spot for longer than 24 hours, so that it's not like a permanent spot. That car has to move every 24 hours to like a different location too. And so there's different ways you can do that, but I don't believe that limiting your homeowner's cars is appropriate. Even in this stance, and then it is a public roadway. Even if you have a parked car on one side, you still have the ability to have a fire truck, you have emergency access, you have 2 lanes of traffic that can go either way with a 30-foot set of pavement. Is it a pain in the rear end? Sure, sometimes, but in this kind of development, a patio home, smaller square footages with a blend of larger square footages, it's really just going to be up to your kind of neighborhood to kind of regulate that. But if there is certain specific language that you would want in your HOA documents, like, hey, your car can't be parked here for longer than 24 hours on the street or whatnot, or overnight or something like that, then I think that those requests are reasonable, but I don't think limiting the amount of cars a homeowner can have is the right thing to do.
There was one in Houston.
Well, that's Houston.
Houston doesn't even have zoning laws. Come on.
Jared, what else you got, man?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Anybody have anything else?
Steve?
Nope, I've got mine tackled. Got one?
No, I'm done.
All right, anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to pass as presented.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Discussion first.
You can have further discussion. You don't have to vote right this second. It's up to you, up to the commission.
Everybody seemed to be.
No.
Anybody opposed? No.
Okay.
Oh, you don't get to vote. Sorry.
I'll raise my hand anyway.
Motion passes. 1 nay. All righty.
What else we got?
Receive status report on various projects from Autumn.
Basically, just an update on the next meeting date, planned for August 20th, Tuesday, August 20th. I am working on a couple applications, so I'll email you guys. That's it.
All right.
Coffee shop never came back?
What?
One that dropped off the radar last time? The coffee shop that was going to go behind Just Breaks?
Yeah, they pulled out.
Okay.
All right. Meeting is adjourned at 8:10.